What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, July 30th, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. We're going to go through the news, then we're going to open up the phone lines here and let you call in with your comments, questions, observations, and opinions here. So getting right on into it. Early today, NASA lifted off the Perseverance mission to Mars. The launch was beautiful. Everything went fine, so it's on its way to Mars, carrying this little drone helicopter. And of course, this mission is definitely geared to look for ancient life. I wonder why they qualify it like that. Shouldn't it be looking for current life as well, based on the findings from Viking back in 1976? But that's the primary mission of Perseverance is to hunt for signs of alien life. One of the cool things it's going to do is it's going to dig up a whole bunch of samples and leave them in these little canisters, caches, whatever you want to call them, for a future mission to come on down, pick them up, and bring them back here to Earth. And I hope they're perfectly sterile by the time they get back here to Earth. Because if panspermia is correct, then any microbes that went from Earth to Mars probably survived the trip, and any microbes that come from Mars to Earth are probably going to survive that trip as well. Remember that Martian meteorite they found in Antarctica not too long ago? Back in 1996, I think it was. Anyway, over in Missouri, a little bit of good news. The Missouri Attorney General has dropped all charges against the McCloskeys. Now, if the name seems familiar, this was the couple that basically protected their home from a bunch of violent rioters by flourishing or brandishing, if you will, an AR-15 and a handgun. As it turned out later on, the handgun was non-operational. It was a prop used in a trial. And it had to be reassembled to make it fireable again. That alone would have gotten any case thrown out of court because that's evidence tampering. And but in any case, it's a moot point because the Missouri Attorney General is dismissing all the charges brought by Kim Gardner, who's the circuit attorney for St. Louis. So that's over and done with, and I agree with this decision. I think everybody has a natural right, an inalienable right, if you will, to defend their home against people who are demonstrating a violent behavior. So I'm perfectly okay with that. Now, Donald Trump, I don't know, he's a disappointment. What can I tell you? He is a disappointment. I'm still glad he beat Hillary Clinton, but he has been a disappointment. Trump is now suggesting delaying the election because of COVID-19 to avoid fraudulent mail-in voting. Now, he doesn't have the authority to do that. That's, election day is set in the Constitution. But it tells me that he's beginning to realize that he could have this election stolen from him. Well, Donald, we've been warning you about this ever since you got the job, and you had plenty of opportunity to try and fix the election system, and you didn't do anything. You disbanded your Election Integrity Commission. You dumped it all on the Department of Homeland Security, who has proven themselves not your friend during that whole Russiagate situation, and you had plenty of opportunity to fix the election system. We even put out a plan for you. We put it up at whatreallyhappened.com, how to have honest elections. And instead you went and played golf. And now you're looking at the very real possibility this November's election is going to be stolen from you through the mail-in voting. The Democrats are desperate to scare everybody to stay at home with the pandemic and vote by mail because then they can rig it. So, Don, this is what you get for not taking care of business when you need to. Now, Representative John Lewis has been lying in state. They had his funeral today. And did you see the crowd? And most of them had masks, except for when they were talking, they take the masks off. But if people can line up to pay respects to Representative John Lewis, then they can have in-person voting in November. That's not what the Democrats want. They want mail-in voting because that way they know they can rig it and steal it. And that's what they're going to do. They tried to do it in 2016. They failed miserably, and now they're out there. If at first you don't succeed, cheat again. And Donald Trump is right to be concerned about vote fraud because 4 people indicted last year in connection with a scheme in which homeless people in Skid Row were allegedly offered money and cigarettes in exchange for false and forged signatures On-ballot petitions and voter registration forms have pleaded no contest, according to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Now, Richard Howard, age 64, and Louis Thomas Wise, 37, pleaded no contest Friday to one felony count each of subscribing a fictitious name or the name of another to an initiative petition and registration of a fictitious person, according to the district attorney's office. So, see, it is going on out there. Election fraud is a reality of life. And Trump was in a position to fix it, and he didn't. He failed. He dropped the ball. It's one of the reasons I'm disappointed in him. Because fixing the election system, having honest and fair elections, has repercussions way beyond Donald Trump himself, way beyond this administration. In fact, if you want to talk about having a legacy to leave to the country after you've left office, that would be it. Honest, fair, verifiable elections. That would be a wonderful gift to give to the American people. So we're seeing the aftermath of the tech moguls hearings up. Jim Jordan hammered Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Cook to kick off the hearing. And this was a remote House Judiciary Subcommittee meeting on antitrust law. And there is no question we're dealing with monopolies here. And they're not supposed to be monopolies in this country. Now, Amazon is out there saying there has to be large companies. You know, we're good for the country, and a lot of people obviously going to disagree with that. Anyway, Zuckerberg has refused to apologize for Facebook's inflated claims about video views on its platform, as Democrat Jerry Nadler flays him for lies which caused journalists to lose their jobs. Now, Zuckerberg denied knowing that Facebook's video stats were inflated for more than a year during the Wednesday hearing before the House Judiciary Subcommittee. He'd been asked about the scandal by Chairman Jerry Nadler, who tore into the Facebook boss because based on these metrics, news publishers fired hundreds of journalists, choosing instead to boost their video division. Zuckerberg said, "Congressman, no, I did not, and we regret that mistake, and we've put in place a lot of other measures since then." And if you believe that one, I have some of Saddam's nuclear weapons to sell you here. Okay, Jeff Bezos got quizzed on whether Amazon designated its own products, but not its competition, as essential deliveries during the pandemic. Now, yesterday we were talking about how Amazon crushed out its competition by investing in small startups, gaining the proprietary information regarding the products that they were making, and then started to make a competing product. And now Bezos is being asked if, in fact, Amazon was giving delivery priority to their own competing products rather than those of these startup companies that invested in. Most of these startup companies have been driven out of business. It's a very aggressive, I guess is a good word to use, way of doing business and getting rid of your competition, buying them up and then wrecking them. Shades of Roger Rabbit, buying up the red car to shut it down, which, by the way, is based on what appears to have been a true business story. Apparently, at one point, Jeff Bezos was having problems with his microphone, was trying to talk to the committee over this virtual hearing and was on mute. And at one point was caught on camera sneaking a snack. Not as much gravitas as he might have wanted for that. Okay, the CEO of Google, on the other hand, is admitting the company engages in manual censorship and blacklists. Well, nobody doubts that. You don't have to look any further than what big tech has done when it comes to conservative speech on the internet. And now, of course, any challenges to the orthodox story of COVID-19. In particular, anybody who says maybe hydroxychloroquine really is helpful. And, oh, are they going to come down on you? I mean, they've shut down this frontline doctors organization. Their web hosting company just yanked their page. Boy, oh boy, the orthodox medical industrial complex is really, really afraid of hydroxychloroquine because they can't make money with it. It's been around for too long. They can't patent it. They can't have market exclusivity. They're going to have to basically, everybody can sell it, but that's competition that drives down the prices. What they want is something new that you're convinced is going to work a lot better, that you're willing to pay much more money to have. That's what's driving all of this. And if a few people should happen to die along the way or get really, really sick, well, piffles, that's just the cost of doing business and keeping our stock prices up. All righty, story that's coming on out of naturalnews.com. Google directly interfering with the 2020 election by censoring alt news websites. And by the way, if you try and search anything with site : whatreallyhappened.com, it'll come up and say, can't find anything. You go to DuckDuckGo with the same argument string, you'll find everything that you need to find at whatreallyhappened.com. Anyway, so Natural News and Brighteon have been completely banned from Facebook and Twitter. Breitbart News is no longer showing up in Google search results due to blatant big tech censorship in the lead up to the 2020 presidential election. That's why we need to stop going to these media, corporate social media companies. You know, why use Facebook if it's going to be controlling what you're saying? Why use Twitter? Why use any of them? There are plenty of startups out there that are willing to practice censorship-free communication peer-to-peer between people. And somebody did a comparison, this was over an Investment Watch blog, of comparing a Google search result with DuckDuckGo. And now DuckDuckGo is one of the web engines that still show you what's inside whatreallyhappened.com. So Google is a fantastic service for finding out practical information like, you know, how to install a new compressor on your air conditioning or something like that. But when it comes to politics and our culture and our society, no, cannot be trusted at all. Cannot be trusted at all. Now, the White House has issued a new executive order on online censorship. It prevents the tech giants from altering users' free speech, demands transparency of moderation practices. Apparently, it modifies Section 230 of the Communications Act, which allowed these social media platforms to operate not as publishers, but as platforms, which was the biggest mistake that they made. And again, Trump wasn't thinking when he signed that one into law. Sometimes I get the feeling that Trump really has been taken by surprise by all of this. And he shouldn't have been, coming in as clearly in as an outsider and seeing the lengths that people were willing to go to keep him from winning the office, not to mention the aborted, failed coup d'etat afterwards with the Russiagate. You know, Trump had to know how serious these people were. They were playing hardball. And he should have been playing hardball back all the time. Now, just to show you how completely wacko people can get about the, you know, we've got to ban this and censor that and get rid of this and tear down this statue and everything. Apparently, some people got upset because they saw what they thought was the Confederate banner. Red background, blue and white stripes crossed in the middle. The giveaway was no white stars on the blue part, and the fact that the stripes basically followed the long and short side of the flag. They weren't diagonal and crossed in the middle. In other words, they were looking at a flag of Norway, and they got all upset because they confused it with the Confederate flag. Is this what our educational system has produced? People who don't have a clue and won't let the absence of a clue stop them from getting on out there and screaming bloody murder about, well, whatever crosses their mind today. Anyway. Joe Biden is out there saying illegal immigration makes the U.S. strong. No, it does not, Joe. Sorry about that, but it really doesn't. And apparently Biden's friends are waging a campaign against Kamala Harris as VP, and apparently the latest rumor is they're pushing Susan Rice. And we'll see what's happening. As long as it's not Hillary, that's all I can say. As long as it's not Hillary, I'll be happy here. Okay, this one is probably going to blow up in his face, but apparently Donald Trump has axed an Obama-era diversity rule that mandated suburbs had to make room for low-income housing. And Trump has basically erased that rule, and he's saying that suburbs will no longer be bothered by low-income housing and crime will go down. Elizabeth Warren branded him racist. And I know that Donald Trump is counting on suburban voters to put him over the top in November, but it's not going to win him any points with minorities. Is it racist or not? Well, no, because income is what you can earn. And what you can earn is based on what you know, what your skill set are, and how hard you're willing to work. Now, if you go into a suburban neighborhood, you're probably going to find a lot of people who are not white, but who worked hard and bought themselves a nice little part of the American dream. So I don't really think it's racist, although Warren is going to say that it is because that's the demographic that she's appealing to here. All right, over at the Department of Justice. Hang on a second. All right, I'll have to take a look at that. The Department of Justice initiative to fight violent crime has extended to Cleveland, Detroit, and Milwaukee. So far from Trump appearing to back down from it, it looks like he's putting pedal to the metal. Black Lives Matter, meanwhile, is making homemade bombs out of fireworks and lacing them with nails. So they caught this Black Lives Matter protest group in Georgia. They modified fireworks and turned them into nail-laced bombs that they chucked at the Atlanta field office of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Okay, why is Black Lives Matter going after Immigration and Customs Enforcement? That's kind of a new one because Immigration and Customs Enforcement, isn't part of the police brutality problem. Anyway, the commercial-grade fireworks turned bombs were discovered almost immediately after the protest ended last Sunday, prompting federal officials to investigate. What they found is that the makeshift devices were intentionally tweaked to make them deadly, putting the very lives of BLM targets at risk. Okay, well, that's an assault with a deadly weapon. Where are the arrests? Where are the handcuffs? Where are the jail cells? Where's the Black Mariah full of malefactors? That's what I'd like to know. All righty, over at the Pentagon, they have a new mandatory training course aimed at preventing leaks, and it describes protesters and journalists as adversaries in a fictional scenario designed to teach Defense Department personnel how to better protect sensitive information. The new course was recently launched as part of Defense Secretary Mark Esper's effort to improve operational security, or OPSEC, and clamp down on leaks. The training materials are public and include a video message from Esper, as well as a July 20th memo outlining his concerns about OPSEC and directing all DoD personnel to take the course within the next 60 days. Yes, there are some days the Pentagon leaks like a colander, actually. A while back, the Washington Post announced that it was going to capitalize the word black, but not the word white when referring to a person's skin color. Well, that drew a tremendous backlash, and as of yesterday, the Washington Post says they will capitalize both black and white when used to refer to a person's skin color. I got an even better idea. Why not you just avoid those terms completely? Okay? We're going to talk about a person. Let's talk about the person. What are their skills? What is their education? What are they doing that rates being covered by the news? As far as I'm concerned, we don't need to know their skin color. It's a moot point. It's used to divide us. I want to find out, are they good people or bad people? That's all I need to know. Is this somebody I can invite over to my home for dinner, or somebody I should lock the door on? That's what I need to know. That's what the news should be telling me, not what color they are. Ridiculous. All right, let's talk a little bit about the economic news here. Germany is seeing quite a plunge in economic output, or gross domestic product, partly because of the coronavirus and partly because of the decline of the global economy overall. And Goldman Sachs is out there saying that dollar debasement is what's driving gold's record rise. But gold and silver are both booming. Gerald Celente is out there saying the economy is going to crash, and gold and silver are what you need to be hanging on to. He's absolutely right about that. Gold coins are a very good thing to own. All I can say is don't eat that chocolate bit out of the middle, or the resale value just goes away. All right, we're going to take a break here for some commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and a reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network and WhatReallyHappened.com are in a state of perpetual fundraising because we need to replace equipment. We need to buy new equipment. And we need to keep going, doing what we're doing, speaking truth to power. So if you can help on out, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. I thank you. And for those of you who have already donated, our heartfelt thanks. All righty, getting on back to the economic news here. People are watching the Three Gorges Dam in China with a tremendous amount of nervousness. They're saying basically, if it lets go, the China supply chain will be wiped off the face of this earth. The flooding is going to go right on through Wuhan, which is the center of all these diseases. It's going to reach all the way down to Shanghai on the coast. And it's going to just cut right through the heart of China's manufacturing and shipping infrastructure. And they're saying this could literally bring down the entire Chinese Communist Party if that dam lets go. So China, of course, is saying nothing to worry about. Yes, it's shifted, it's moved a little bit. There are cracks and structural issues, but trust us, that nothing's going to happen to the dam. As of the last report, the water level is something like 6 meters above what's considered the danger zone, and still rising because the rains are continuing, the monsoon season is on them, and there's floodwater still trickling down from Tibet. All right, let's talk about COVID-19 and some of the ancillary stuff that's going on here. Dr. Simone Gold is out there saying Squarespace shuts down America's Frontline Doctors website. The website is now completely gone. And again, this is just absolute blatant censorship. Website hosting provider Squarespace has shut down the website of the group, America's Frontline Doctors, following a press conference they held in Washington, D.C., according to Dr. Simone Gold. According to a screenshot posted by Gold, the web hosting service shut down the group's website for, quote, activity that's false, fraudulent, inaccurate, or deceiving, end quote. Now, who at Squarespace is a medical doctor that's in a position to know whether what these other experienced doctors, some of them 30 years practice, are saying? Okay, why are they declaring it to be false, fraudulent, inaccurate, or deceiving? Because the government says so? That's tyranny and dictatorship. Or is it because they own stock in the pharmaceutical industries and they want to get rich off of a patentable cure or treatment, more treatment than cure for COVID-19? Remember, that's the business model. They don't want to cure anything. They don't want you healthy. If you're healthy, they can't make money off of you. If you're constantly sick, if you've had surgery that needs constant maintenance and care, then by golly, you're a profit center and they're going to love you for that. So it's not just the conservatives who are being actively censored by social media. It's everything. And you got to pay attention to that. And you got to go on out and you got to dig out your own information about what's going on and make up your own mind, because you can just see with your own eyes how hard various vested interests are working to try and control what you think. Because all mind control is controlling the brain by controlling what it knows. And they're trying to make sure you don't know things they don't want you to know. That's what brainwashing is. That's what mind control is. They want to control your brain so that you will pony up the $300 per shot for a treatment for COVID-19 rather than $10 to $15 to be actually cured of it. Because according to Goldman Sachs, that's a bad business model to actually cure somebody. Just what are you thinking, curing somebody? And all of a sudden, the fact that they've never been able to cure the common cold makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? They don't want to cure the common cold. They want to treat you for the symptoms, and then you go back to work and you give the cold to a bunch of other people. They go to the pharmacy and buy a bunch of treatments. Then they go back to work, or they go to church, or they go to their PTA meetings, and they infect more people. And all those people come down sick and go to the pharmacy to buy a whole bunch of stuff. You can see how the mechanism works, right? That's why they don't want to cure. Look at all these commercials you see where, they're asking for donations. We're seeking the cure for blah, 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 whatever they're seeking the cure for this week. But they never get cured. Look how long they've been trying to find a cure for cancer. Haven't found it. Don't want to. A lot more money to be made treating cancer than curing it. Donate money to find the cure for HIV. Haven't found that either. Lots of treatments, though. We're seeking the cure for muscular dystrophy. Haven't cured that yet either. Lots of treatments, though. All about the money. It's all about getting more money out of you using the fear of illness and death to just exploit that fear, to impoverish you, to enrich themselves. We were really much better off when medicine was considered a service and there were limits on how much profit they could make. When Nixon turned it into a for-profit corporation, that's when medical care went to heck in this country. We'll be right back after these commercials. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the reality of the medical industrial complex in this country here and how right now they're exploiting the COVID-19 pandemic to try and maximize their profitability by dissing, rejecting, ridiculing any possible cures that exist already in favor of a yet-to-be-developed cure, which can be patentable and sold at a monopoly. So anyway, there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Harvey A. Risch. He's an MD and a PhD. He's a renowned epidemiologist from Yale University, and he's got like 300 peer-reviewed published studies under his belt. So this is a guy who walks his talk. He managed to get an op-ed published in no less than Newsweek magazine, and it makes a solid case for the use of hydroxychloroquine in conjunction with the antibiotics azithromycin or doxycycline and the nutritional supplement zinc. And in this op-ed, he blasts the fake news media and leftist politicians for rejecting hydroxychloroquine. I think the leftists rejected it because Donald Trump was for it. Anyway, YouTube has deplatformed Del Bigtree's The High Wire channel after his investigations questioned the rigged COVID-19 narrative of the World Health Organization and CDC. So they pulled the plug on him today, following Del's coverage of hydroxychloroquine, the low-cost, off-patent drug that an increasing number of doctors are advocating as a treatment and cure for COVID-19. No, you can't do that. We have to have something patentable. We have to make money. That's what we're here to do. We're not here to make people well. We're not here to cure anybody. We're here to treat them and make money. That's the mindset. That's the mindset that's out there. Anyway, The High Wire is a wildly popular broadcast covering vaccines, health freedom, masks, the pandemic, and much more. Del Bigtree has become a well-known analyst and celebrity among people who honor health freedom and medical choice. So, YouTube's blacklisting of Del Bigtree is the latest act of malicious censorship by Google YouTube to try and silence all speech that discusses alternatives to lockdowns, vaccines, masks, and high-profit pharmaceuticals. And that's really what it's all about, maintaining the high profitability. All right, let's go to the international news here. Iran has launched ballistic missiles from underground silos for the first time and pounds an island with bombs a day after attacking a mocked-up U.S. aircraft carrier in the Strait of Hormuz. So they're definitely they're definitely rattling their sabers out there. Of course, the U.S. has been rattling the sabers as well. Donald Trump is pulling 12,000 troops out of Germany, slashing presence there by a third because Angela Merkel is delinquent on NATO spending. So the U.S. will bring about 6,400 forces home from Germany and shift about 5,600 to other countries in Europe because the country is delinquent on defense. It's always about the money. Always about the money. Okay, Israel has moved an advanced missile system to the Lebanese border on fears of an attack by Hezbollah. And a Hebrew language channel stated yesterday that the Israeli army expects an attack by Hezbollah during the Islamic Eid al-Adha holiday. And as a matter of fact, they had something else that came through. It's a little further on the talking points, concern about the Eid holiday. So the news channel reported that based on this expectation, the Israeli army has strengthened its forces in the north near the Lebanese and Syrian borders, deploying advanced missile systems, special rockets, and intelligence gathering capabilities. Okay. Here we are. Okay, over in Southern California at Chapman University, they've got a large chunk of the Berlin Wall, and it's basically put up as a symbol of freedom. And for some reason, somebody has now defaced it, vandalized it, according to university spokesman. Okay. Okay. Last April, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, my old alma mater, issued a public challenge named Honey, I Shrank the Payload, which is sort of a nod to the hit movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids from 1989. The public challenge called for people, students, to design instruments that could one day be tiny payloads for future missions to the moon. And on July 14th, JPL announced the miniature winners. Some of them were very clever. A water detector on a single PC card, spectrographs that were just in these little tiny boxes. But of course, that's the way you want to go. The smaller and lighter your payload is, the more payload you can have on a mission. And I was noticing over at spacex.com, they already have a price list where if there's, leftover room on a launch, they'll sell it. So you can get your own payload into space, which is really kind of cool. Now, there are certain rules, of course, certain things you cannot send up there. For example, you can't send up like coins or metals or something like that and then bring them back to Earth and sell them. They don't want that kind of exploitation. They're interested in science and meaningful payloads there. But here we go. This is an interesting story. This is about volcanoes. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Now, volcanoes that appear to be benign can be much more violent than previously feared due to volatile magma hidden deep below the surface, according to a study. Now, this may have a bearing on something that's going over on the Big Island in Hawaii. Now, if you look at a map, the Big Island, which is also called Hawaii, but it's referred to as the Big Island to avoid confusing it for the entire state. There are two major volcanic peaks. One is Mauna Kea, where the observatories are all located, and the other one is Mauna Loa, which is above the active volcano. But lately they've been discovering that there are regularly occurring quakes underneath Mauna Kea, and they're not sure where they're coming from. But it could be that, and the last time Mauna Kea erupted was something like 4,000 years ago. And obviously, with all those observatories up there on the top of the peak, they were very, very concerned about that. All right, so let's talk about Jeff Epstein. Now, we all know about Ghislaine Maxwell, however it's pronounced here. Apparently, there's another woman who's surfaced as a procurer of young women for Jeffrey Epstein, and that's Natalia Malshev. She's 38 years old. And apparently she lives in Los Angeles, and she bills herself as a professional massage therapist. And she insists she's just another Epstein victim who'd been left traumatized by him. Now, Epstein victim Sarah Ransom is accusing Natalia Malshev of introducing her to Epstein in the Netflix documentary Filthy Rich. Looks like something I'd like to see. South African-born Ransom claims Malshev lured her into flying to Epstein's private pedophile island in the Caribbean in 2006. Now, a source said Natalia was a victim in all of this. Like everybody else, she did not know what was going to happen to Sarah on that island. Sure, we believe that one. So here's the question. How many women did Jeff Epstein have working for him? And what's it going to take for just one of them to go public with what was really happening? That'll be the interesting part. All right. Down in Australia, down under, they have been having a big problem with bushfires. They're estimating that 3 billion with the bee animals were killed by the bushfires during what is being described as Australia's summer from hell. The World Wildlife Fund examined 11.46 million hectares of fire-ravaged land. An analysis of the bushland found 3 billion animals inhabited these areas. While scientists can't confirm total deaths, it is unlikely any survived. That's because food sources and shelter habitats were also decimated. The 3 billion figure is 3 times the estimate made in January by scientists. All right, let's talk about computers here and backdoors. Apparently, Intel wants to backdoor every computer in the world with something called the Intel Management Engine. And this has been a trend we've seen in CPU manufacturers where your CPU has a second CPU on top of it, ostensibly there to optimize flow and make it work faster. But it always turns out that these little parasite CPUs are wide open backdoors as well. So now the backdoors are in the hardware itself. It's time to go back and start building our own computers out of telephone relays. And none of this has anything to do with catching terrorists or criminals. It's all about keeping an eye on you, about violating your privacy, about spying on you to make sure you're not thinking those double plus ungood thoughts. Now, we've all watched Boston Dynamics, and they've done some incredible stuff. Apparently, the Ford factory is now employing 2 of their robot dogs, and they're putting them on the factory floor at the Van Dyke transmission plant near Detroit. And they have these 2 Boston Dynamic robot dogs named Fluffy and Spot, which can be deployed into tough-to-reach areas within the plant to scan the area with laser scanners and high-definition cameras, collecting data used to retool the plants, saving Ford engineers time and money. Well, that's cool. I think that's really, really good. Okay, as I mentioned at the top of the show, NASA has launched the Perseverance rover to Mars. They're calling it the Alien Hunter, and it will dig up Martian samples and launch the first helicopter on Mars, which looks more like a drone. They showed a picture of it today here. Now, this is very interesting. Scientists have successfully revived more microbes that had lain dormant at the bottom of the sea since the age of the dinosaurs, 100 million years ago. And the organisms are eating and even multiplying after all this time in the deep. Now, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the definition of life. If you have a chemical system that reproduces, that's life. So their research sheds light on the remarkable survival power of some of Earth's most primitive species, which can exist for tens of millions of years with barely any oxygen or food before springing back to life in the lab. It's also a warning that something brought back from another planet could still be viable. Okay, here's a cautionary note here. Earlier in the show, I was talking about how profit is now driving the medical industry. And what they want are people who are patients for life. And apparently that is a factor in this promotion of gender reassignment, especially the young people. Because once you've been through that surgery, you're kind of hooked. You have to keep on going to the doctor for hormone treatments and various other issues because of the sex surgery. You know, this is altering the sex characteristics of physically healthy people. It's framed as a human rights issue. And as a result, most people miss the fact it's a growing industry. It's evolving in body disassociation, creating a new market in sex. It's not just engaging in sex, but being a sex, from our genes and DNA to our sex characteristics that are being farmed for profit. Rebranding of transsexualism to transgenderism and its promotion as normal commodifies being a sex. Sex, especially female sex, has already been colonized by corporations through the industries of pornography, prostitution, and commercial surrogacy. But the colonization of being a sex or changing sex goes further. And again, you're going to need constant medical care once you go through that drastic surgery here. Okay, apparently in downtown Manhattan, in the Midtown, drug addicts have converted part of the city into what's called a shooting gallery. And they're shooting up in broad daylight and leaving behind drug-filled needles. and they have like photos of a woman injecting a syringe into her arm. That's kind of nasty to see. I remember years ago when I was working in Italy, and I visited a place called Sforzescu Castle, and you could see the druggy needles all over the place. It was really, really, really ugly stuff here. All right, let's go back up here. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. All righty. One nation under house arrest. How do COVID-19 mandates impact our freedoms? It doesn't even matter what the nature of the crisis may be. Civil unrest, the national emergencies, unforeseen economic collapse, and so forth. As long as it allows the government to justify all manner of government tyranny in the so-called name of national security here. Okay, another article on Trump delaying the November election. He doesn't really have the authority to do that. Nearly 50% of all the jobs lost during the COVID-19 pandemic may be gone permanently. And we already had a major unemployment problem even before the COVID-19 pandemic. They were trying to hide it from us. Now they can't. Now they got something to blame it on. Okay. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about, we want to talk about lousy timing here. You know, we're coming up on Shark Week on Discovery Channel, and the timing is very unfortunate because of what happened up in Maine. And it's interesting, they've got Mike Tyson apparently is going to, you know, get into a shark cage and punch a shark or something is the highlight of Shark Week here. And, you know, great that he's got the opportunity to make a little bit of money, but Claire felt he was being exploited. All right, we've got callers on the line now. We're going to take a phone call from Jim in Brooklyn. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
A couple of things. You were talking about these gender reassignment operations. I have a name for these people because, you know, on the website they call people who are about climate change, they call them climate deniers.
Yes.
I call them chromosome deniers. And
very good.
I want to beg your pardon?
I said very good.
Yeah, chromosome deniers. That's it. So they're jogging, twisting right back at them. And another thing, have you heard the story that happened a couple of days ago about this person in Manhattan was thrown into an unmarked van by undercover cops and caused a big hullabaloo? Did you hear about that?
I heard about that, yes.
Well, it turns out, I don't know if you heard about this part, it came out afterwards, that was an 18-year-old transgender person. For whatever that's worth.
Well, I'm pretty sure the police didn't arrest him or her or it for that purpose. You know, were they part of a protest? Were they getting violent?
Yeah, well, that's it. It's all violent.
Okay, Jim, can you stay on the line? Jim, stay on the line. I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsor. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Jim in Brooklyn. We're talking about gender, and I just got an email from somebody saying, I find it interesting that transgenders want everyone to accept them for who they are, but they couldn't accept themselves for who they were. And that's a really good point there. You know, oh, my goodness, I'm a man. Whack it off, whack it off. And one of the big ugly secrets of this whole transgender thing is how many people will go through the gender reassignment surgery, then they change their minds and they want to come back. And it's just a huge mess. Now, folks, if you've got your health, that's all you need. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And there's this whole growing industry of surgery for cosmetic, for gender reassignment, for whatever, on people who are otherwise perfectly healthy. And you never come out of a surgery with your health, 100%. There's always a cost anytime any of that thing is done. So, folks, look in a mirror. You are perfect the way the universe made you, and stop letting some charlatan chase you around with a scalpel and say, I can make you better. My wife has this show that she watches on cable TV. It's called Botch. And it's basically a show about, as the name implies, botched plastic surgery operations that have to be corrected. So you're looking at people who've been through 2 surgeries, the original plastic surgery that was messed up, then they have to go through and have a correction done. And it's just not good. And as you get older, the scars come out, and it's I don't see it as being worth it. But this email writer just, had it right there. these people are being convinced they can't accept themselves as being a boy or being a girl. And so they go on out and they have this surgery done. And then they walk out there and say, you have to accept me the way I am. Well, why? You couldn't accept you the way that you were.
Oh, Mike. Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Yeah, and a lot of those people are also, it's also symptomatic of a general displeasure with society at large. A lot of them are in this Antifa type of movement. They're swept up. Portland is famous for it as being a mecca for transgender people. In fact, people in the local government here, some of them are transgenders, and they have a big chip on their shoulder. I want to mention also about this plastic surgery in general. One of the people who your wife Claire may have seen on TV was a woman about 15, 20 years ago. Her name, they called her the Cat Woman. She was an extremely wealthy socialite, and she ended up having her face looked like a cat. You saw that?
Yeah.
And one other thing you talk about the shooting galleries. I never saw an actual shooting gallery, but I live a few blocks, from the Williamsburg Bridge, which is, very convenient. So I'm basically like I live in Manhattan in a way. And I used to walk back and forth a lot across the Williamsburg Bridge. And before they refurbished it, we had old crumbling walkways there. And one time there were people doing that, not as a whole crowd, but individuals. One time I got onto the bridge from the Lower East Side. I saw a woman who would be otherwise an attractive person. She had her back propped against the side rail structure, the fence. Her knees were propped up towards her chest. Her buttocks were showing, and blood was dripping down her buttocks. She had just injected herself in her thigh. It was one of the most nauseating things I ever saw on an otherwise attractive person.
Hey, Jim, I got to put you on hold. Jim, I got to put you on hold again. We got to do a station identification. We'll be right back and let you finish your story. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. There are callers on the line, and we're talking with Jim in Brooklyn, who was regaling us with a story about seeing a junkie just basically tearing herself up with all the injections. And I used to see this kind of stuff when I lived in North Hollywood, and it really is very, very ugly. And most people, until they're made aware of what it is they're looking at, they can be pretty oblivious to what's going on.
Yeah, I want to mention one more thing about switching the language around on these language jargon. These people who change the language around to their favor. They have a thing about a woman's right to choose.
Mm-hmm.
I once did something that had me followed around. I don't go into the details of how I knew. I was followed around by the FBI for about a week. And you know what happened? I was on Twitter, and I saw all these. I started looking at all these pro-abortion women, including this one that was very famous. She has a blog from Texas. Her name was Marquette, Amanda Marquette. Anyhow, she had all these people following her and all that stuff. So I sent out like a hashtag spam to all of her followers and her, and I said, I support an abortion clinic bomber's right to choose.
Well, I can see why the FBI was following you around after that one. And
I wasn't really threatening anyone, but I was trying to be cute with them with their own joke. You know what I mean? Well,
I'll tell you what you probably could have done and would have worked a lot better is say, I support a father's right to choose.
Yeah,
Yeah, because now I can see there are times and circumstances under which abortion is necessary. Where I have a problem with it is, people who don't want to take responsibility for their own sexuality are just using it as retroactive birth control. And I do have a serious, serious problem with that. And in the case of where you have a marriage, where a man and a woman have gotten married, I mean, a real man and a real woman who are capable of having offspring, and they married with the understanding that they were going to have children, that it was going to be a regular family with children. And all of a sudden, the woman changes her mind. And the husband is supposed to just go along with that and not have an argument or not have anything to say about it. I have a problem with that one as well.
I just to close out one last thing, response to what you just said. I once heard somebody very astutely mention that the entire beginning of this whole problem with the sexual revolution and all the problems that stem from it up until today began with birth control pills. I'm not saying it sounded pretty right on, not the 100%, but it sounded pretty accurate. Birth control pills, as good as they might be in certain individual cases, rarely, he said that was the beginning of the whole what we call revolution.
Well, I'm not sure that the sexual revolution or birth control itself is necessarily a bad thing, given that there is a population problem. My concern is with people who don't want to be bothered with the pill or birth control, and they just go out and they have a lot of fun, and then nature happens, and they say, well, I'll just go down to Planned Parenthood and have this thing sucked out of me. And as I said before, if there is a partner, a married partner, a spouse, that wanted to have children, shouldn't they have some say in whether or not that baby lives or dies?
And a lot of people don't realize that Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was held aloft by Adolf Hitler as an example of one way to control populations. Adolf Hitler held Margaret Sanger in reverence.
Yes, absolutely. And Margaret Sanger was also very racist. She started Planned Parenthood with the idea of thinning out the black part of the population.
And I'm sure you heard about that Project Veritas, where they caught the abortionists saying that they would be willing to take money to abort only black babies. You heard about that?
I heard about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, I enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully, we'll have more good things to talk about. And have a good day.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Thank you for waiting patiently, Mark. What's on your mind?
Mike, just mentioned about Del Bigtree.
Yes.
I didn't know that. You got to understand something. This is not just about money. When it comes to chloride, whatever it's called. Okay.
Hydroxychloroquine.
This is about, chloroquine. This is about control, right? These people want this disease to continue because they want to scare us, giving up our rights, our freedoms, and everything else. All connected, Mike. This guy was talking about somebody gets their, cut off or something like that. This stuff is all connected. These what do you call it? These technocrats, that's exactly what they want. They want an end to the human race. And by the way, I believe the idea of the mask is basically a ritualistic thing to the Illuminati. The Illuminati is really called New World Order, Illuminati, whatever else. These technocrats are really part of the Illuminati, and the Illuminati is very ritualistic, probably because they're basically devil worship. Whether you believe in the devil or not, they certainly do. And it's supposed to represent no more carbon dioxide to the air. So now we're going to shut your mouth and have masks over them. You can't breathe any more carbon. Okay? Really ritualistic thing. I've come to that conclusion. There is no question. These people are outright evil. Like, they wouldn't be doing this. YouTube, Google, Facebook, Twitter, knocking these doctors off your channel, and now knocking off a man like Del Bigtree off. But we can't let this happen. There's BitChute out there. There's DLive. There's other avenues. We must stop these people, Mike. These people are outright evil. I don't care if you're left, right, center, whatever you are, black, white, brown. That's why I was talking yesterday about the stupidity of people, turning on each other because of some silly thing like race, which means nothing. We got to start understanding the enemy. And once you understand it, it's easy to defeat them because there are only a few of them. They're a bunch of elitists. Nobody likes them. I personally believe there has to be trials for them too. And I believe their heads need to be cut off in public, much like they did with the guillotine. I believe in the law. I say, give them a quick trial, and then just like they did during the French Revolution, guillotine them right on the street, in public, on TV, and on their precious internet. Okay? So this way, anybody in the future understands, because these people don't stop. They've been going around doing this since at least the 1700s. Okay?
No, they're convinced they're right. They're convinced they're smarter than everybody else, and they're convinced that being wealthy or powerful gives them a right to make decisions for other people. Obviously, you and I disagree with that. Yeah,
that they want to make. Yeah, but they also want to turn themselves into robots. and get rid of the rest of us. There's no question. They pretty much admit it. They are evil to the max. And unless we stop them, and we got it, and the way to stop them is to have knowledge, to understand what they're doing, and support other networks like BitChute. Because if we don't stop them, they are going to destroy us. They're using this virus, whatever it is, as a weapon, right? As a weapon of control. And by the way, Dustin, listen to me a second, Dustin, okay? You're helping these people when you contribute to your nonsense about masks, about the importance of wearing masks and his stupid social distancing, right? You're helping the enemy. And that's what they are. Now, I'm not saying that the virus doesn't exist. I see Herman Cain totally fell to it today.
Yes.
But Herman Cain had many underlying problems, okay? He had serious cancer some years ago. He had stage 4 cancer, I think, of the colon and the liver. And I'm sure they had to do a lot of things that probably destroyed much of his immune system. On top of that, I understand he had other problems too. Alex Jones was talking about it today, other severe medical problems like lungs and all that. It wasn't that he was a healthy guy. He wasn't. Okay? It's a shame. I miss him. The guy was a good guy. Okay? But they're already using it for a fear factor. Okay? And on top of that, they had him on a ventilator. It wouldn't have surprised me if they couldn't, if hydroxychloroquine couldn't have saved his life. Okay? Instead of putting him on a ventilator. But I think these evil slime wanted his head because they wanted a prominent African-American conservative and say to see, there it is, and I understand he went to Trump's rally there in Oklahoma, which probably was a mistake because if you got the kind of problems he's got, on top of that, his age and all the problems he's got, he shouldn't have gone to something like that, okay? But the fact of the matter is, I'll bet you hydroxychloroquine could have helped him. Instead, they stuck him on a ventilator, which is a murder machine. That's all it is. It's a murder machine, Mike.
If it's not set correctly, it can cause a lot more damage than it does good.
Exactly. We got to wake up, Mike. We got to wake up and understand who the enemy is. We got to defeat this enemy. This is a dangerous, insidious, I don't know whether I'm going to say outer-worldly. I'm not David Icke. I don't know if I believe that, these lizard people from another dimension. I don't know if I believe that stuff. But I do believe these people are evil to the max.
Yes.
Okay? They're just as evil as Hitler. I always say Gates is just as evil as, or just about as evil as Hitler, and way more dangerous. Way more dangerous. And Mike, that's all. I'm just so disgusted. I got to find out where else I can get Big Tree now that he's off of YouTube. Okay? Hopefully he's on BitChute or something. So,
well, I imagine he's going to find some way to get back on there. And again, we're starting to see a lot of social media startups. We just need to popularize them. We need to get out there and just say, look, try this other one over here. There's this other search engine that works a lot better, like DuckDuckGo,
DuckDuckGo. I use DuckDuckGo for my search engine. I got rid of Google. Okay?
Yes.
More people got to do that. You don't need Google. I get just as good searches for DuckDuckGo as I used to get for Google. As a matter of fact, better. Because DuckDuckGo doesn't play the games Google does. Okay? There's no reason to have to use Google anymore. And we can get rid of all the others too. The only good thing about YouTube is I can get it on my TV. I can't get these other things on my TV. I have to go to my computer for BitChute and stuff like that. I haven't figured out. Maybe there is no way to get it on TV yet. I don't know. You have to go through Apple TV.
The keyword is yet. The keyword is yet.
Yeah. So we got to do something about Apple too. Personally, Mike, I wouldn't be upset if China decides to just grab everything Apple, all their factories and whatever else they got out there in China, and tell Apple to go, themselves. Okay? I wouldn't blame China at all if they did that. Anything to destroy these corporations, these big, vicious, predatory corporations, Mike. They are the enemy of the people. These billionaires are the enemy of the people. At least most of them are. Okay.
Okay, Mark.
These technocrats. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a comment
Yeah.
from our Mike in our control room saying that you can always run an HDMI cable from your computer to the TV if you want to watch Brighteon and YouTube, on the big screen.
Well, I got YouTube. I just don't get the I can't get
No, I
like
said YouTube. YouTube. NEWTUBE. It's another one. It's a video platform.
BND, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a competitor. It's a direct competitor.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right. Ryan Dawson said he's on there now. That's right.
Yes.
I forgot about that. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll try. What do I need? What kind of cable?
HDMI.
HDMI cable.
Yeah, it's the standard high def cable.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try that. All right.
Okay.
I appreciate that. I really do, Mike. All right.
Anything
so,
else?
that's about it. That's it, Mike. I tell you, I hope like Dustin you decide to answer what I just said. Okay. Because again,
I'm
Dustin,
sure you
you're
will.
helping me. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it. Take it easy, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot, Mark. We're going to let you go and switch over to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Wow, man, it was pretty wild. Yeah, good day, Michael. First off, Mark, the caller, yeah, Herman Cain did have diabetes also. That's really was a big contributor to why he died, more like. So let's go back to the other caller after that. The caller before that, I don't know if he remembers or you remember, Michael, in Podesta, when Trump won the election that night, he was almost basically crying. Him and his brother are in the devil worshiping, the Podesta brothers. Well, one of them definitely was in the devil worshiping. And they'll do like, what's his name said, they'll do anything to take down Trump with their evil black magic and all this nonsense. And to that other caller, he made a great point about something. Caller before Mark, he said something. You remember, Michael, when we were kids, when you would go to the movie theater and they had intermission?
Yes.
And they had a little message playing up on the screen, and they would actually tell you, go get some popcorn, go get some candy, go get your soda. You make sure you get a large soda. Right? He used to subliminally flash that in the little kid's brain, and the kids actually, well, he was making a point, Mike, about the subliminals that they do with language. How these leftists manipulate all these white people to vote Democrat is by language. The language, how they manipulate the language to put guilt on you. So I just wanted him to throw that out there. Now listen, like here's what I really going to get off my chest. Let's go back to yesterday's call with Paul. I want to give Paul some facts, and Paul needs to do his figures. Okay, Paul. And when I'm done, I'm pretty sure you're going to call in. I hope you do. I'm going to give you some facts, Paul. When the McDuffie riots happened, Paul, you told me 18 people were murdered. Paul, do you know that was the first day of the riots? Paul, 600 people were wounded, and after a 2-year period, a lot of those people were dying. So that figure came up to 70. That's how I got the figure of 70. Something when the Herald did a report 2 years later after the McDuffie riots. Paul, over $110 million was damaged in the Dade County area alone, Paul. $110 billion. Okay? Now, here's what I'm going to tell Paul about the Civil War before I go to Andersonville. I want to tell him about this, Mike. In 1992, when we had Hurricane Andrew,
yes,
the Miami Herald, the federal government under George Bush, did not tell you the true facts of all the people who got killed in that hurricane. We had a Mexican migrant camp down in Homestead, Florida City area, where they say over 200 people got wiped out in their mobile homes. We had a trailer park down the street from where I'm at. It was called Blue Lakes. Over 38 people got blown away in their mobile home that stayed in that trailer park, Paul. So you believe anything the government's telling you, Paul? Paul, you want to tell me I don't know my figures and I better get my facts straight? Well, I'm going to give you a fact, Paul. Yes, you were right about Andersonville, Paul. You were right. At that one, in that camp, they had over 40, almost, it was close to 46,000 people in that camp. What I meant to say is over 211,000 prisoners of war of Yankees were in prison in the South and mainly in Georgia. Okay, Paul? But, Paul, let's talk about what you really need to know. You know who was a bigger butcher in the Civil War in the South? Was the North. You know, New York, Paul, in the state of New York, they had a big prison camp, and they killed thousands and thousands of Confederate soldiers, and they starved them to death. They did the same thing in Douglas, Fort Douglas in Chicago. They starved the Confederate soldiers to death. Abraham Lincoln knew about it, but Stanton, why don't you do a story about Stanton? The guy was under the war commissioner under Abraham Lincoln, what he did to the Confederate men. He did more horrific stuff to the South than the South did to the North, Paul. And then you want to talk about William Tecumseh Sherman? Paul, he was a teacher at Louisiana State University, LSU, Paul. He did spend a lot of time in Georgia. He had a place in Georgia, believe it or not. I don't know how long he stayed. I believe he stayed there 2 years. But William Tecumseh Sherman was a total butcher the way he went about that war. if Nathan Bedford Forrest, Paul, would have done the same tactic, or Jefferson Davis was thinking about doing, because Jefferson Davis, after all, didn't get caught till like months after the war ended, Paul. And if Nathan Bedford Forrest, when he became the Klansman, Paul, which were Democrats, Paul, and I want to ask you one more thing, Mike. Well, there's a few things I want to ask. I want to know what Dustin, Paul, and how they're going to vote in this election. And who do they think should be president? I would like to call them out on that. Or are they going to even vote at all? Because I think Dustin said he wouldn't even vote at all. So what good is his vote? Because he's not going to even vote. So I guess maybe Paul the same way. He don't, but Paul makes some good points. He made some really good points yesterday. I must say that. But when he's going to call me out, telling me that, I'm sorry about the Andersonville fact. So actually, Andersonville, Mike, only had 33,700 in the camp at only one time. But over almost 46,000 actually went through the camp itself. But they traded a lot of prisoners back and forth between the North and the South. Thousands and thousands of prisoners were being swapped out. When the war ended in the Civil War, Mike, all those Southern men that were in Douglasville prison in Chicago, Paul, had to walk their butts back down to the South. They have a trail, I forgot the name of it, Mike, but from Chicago going back down to Tennessee, down to Alabama, down to South Carolina, down to Florida, a lot of Confederate soldiers literally had to walk, Mike, back to the South to set up their cities.
Okay. Tom, got to take a break.
Yeah.
Going to put you on hold. We'll be back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Tom in Florida. And Tom, if you could kind of pick up where you left off.
Yes, sir. Michael, first off, I want Paul to also realize this. There was 409,000 Union and Confederate troops caught in the Civil War. 409,000. It could be a little higher, but that's what they basically got in the archives. Also, I want Paul to know this, that Andersonville, if you ever go there to Georgia, Andersonville, I've been there, it's free. You don't have to pay a dime to go into the complex there to see the monuments and stuff. It's a pretty amazing place to visit. And but going back to that, Michael, the North, they won the war, so they wrote the history, but they don't tell you what the wickedness they pulled. And also, I want Paul to know this. There's a city called Jackson, Mississippi, Paul. You know what they called it? Chimneyville, Paul? Do you have any, Paul, Michael, you have any idea what they called Jackson, Mississippi, Chimneyville after the Civil War?
No, I don't. Enlighten us.
Because the only thing left in all those houses, all those people lived in was their cement chimneys that the brick chimneys were standing.
You mean chimney?
Thousands of brick chimneys. Yes, chimneys, like a chimney with fireplace.
Yeah, chimney.
Yes, they called it Chimneyville. Yeah, exactly. That's why they called it that, because Sherman was ruthless what he did to the civilian population to win the war.
Okay.
He was he actually got ruthless as all get out but see, Mike, the Civil War nobody's talking about is that if Bedford Forrest or either the Confederates would have done that, and by the way, Michael, during the Civil War, only one person was ever held for crime for war crimes, and that was the guy at Andersonville.
Yeah.
The commandant of Andersonville. He's the only one that was hung by a rope. None of the Yankee Union soldiers, commanders, were ever hung for what they did to the Confederate troops in New York, Chicago, all over Jersey, all over. They had prison camps all up in the North too, but nobody has ever talked about that. So they basically got off of their war crimes, and it was perpetrated on both sides. So, and getting back to Paul, I want Paul to know this real quickly. When Hurricane Andrew hit in South Florida, like I told you, there's a big migrant camp out here in the South end of South Dade. And that camp got blown away, Mike. And I have a bunch of my friends were telling me, and these are law enforcement, they had tractor trailers down there, refrigerated trucks, putting all the bodies in. And they never said anything in the Miami Herald. Just like they told Paul's calling in saying only 18 people were killed in the McDuffie riot. Well, that's a darn lie, Mike. How did over 600 people, according to Herald, got hurt viciously, very badly, and only 18 died? That was on the first day, Paul. 18 people died on the first day. They didn't talk about all the people. Some people actually got burnt to death in their cars, Mike. Okay?
Yeah.
Some people were literally burnt to death. I know one guy whose uncle was smashed with a Miami Herald paper rack because he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay? That was a night. That was in the McDuffie riot. If Paul wants to know another fact, I'll give him. When the Mariel boat lift happened here in South Florida, Paul, I would like you to research that, and you tell me your numbers, and I'll call you back the next day to tell you what I think. Because when the Mariel boat lift, when Castro flooded this place when he flushed the toilet over there. How many murders do you think we had the first year that they were here, Paul? How many homicides were in Dade County? They made a movie called Scarface. You ever see the movie, Paul? You should watch the movie. It's fictitious. It's fiction compared to what was really happening during that time. I remember it was a second ago. It's like I remember Hurricane Andrew. I was in the eye of it. I saw a tower that was 150 feet high, Michael, crumble like a toothpick. When it hit the ground, the whole neighborhood shook. Okay? So, and the guy's telling me I don't know, I better get my facts. Well, maybe I lost the facts on Andersonville. I'm sorry. But what I actually meant to say was there was over 209,000 prisoners of war caught by the Confederate Army that was holding Union soldiers in the South. And the South had 194,000 Confederate troops held in the North. So, the facts ain't always what they may be, but then again, the facts are being written by the ones who win the wars. You ever see basically like in the beginning of Braveheart, history is written by those who basically win at
Yes.
How it goes. So, but going back to, and Paul made some great points yesterday. Don't get me wrong, he really did. He hit some things that were pretty right on the money. I got to tell you, Paul's right. A lot of these disenfranchised Democrat voters, they should start thinking, you want to be with Black Lives Matter? You want to be with Antifa that's trying to destroy our Constitution? Seriously? You people never lived a hard life. They never had to worry about, none of these white kids that are doing all this protest, they never had to miss a meal. They can go to Burger King, they get fast food, they can go get their mommy to buy them a steak dinner. None of these people had to live in one of these third world countries where you're lucky to get a chicken a week. You're lucky if you got a bowl of bean soup. And you never get soft bread. It's all hard bread. The bread's like a rock. After 1 hour, forget it. It's unbelievable. So, hearing these people calling your show and this and that, and so we need to all get along. And like that one call you had, Mike, talking about how they use the language against us. That's exactly what the left does. They use the language.
Yes.
They twist words. Mike, we're trying to put Ebonics in some of these universities. I think Rutgers is trying to say that you need to learn to speak Ebonics. Yeah, but you know what I mean? What's going on with that, Mike?
I thought Ebonics had gone away. I really did. Anyway, listen, we're at the end of the segment here, and I've got other callers waiting on the line, Tom, so I'm going to have to let you go here. We're going to take a break for commercials. We've got other callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here, starting with James in Japan. Hajime James. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Mike.
James.
I'm quite worried right now.
Oh.
I believe that after mumbling Joe Biden drops out of the race, that you are going to utilize your show to once again spew this anti-white, anti-American propaganda. It was just a few years ago where you said that if it comes down to the white American Hillary or Godzilla, I will vote for the green Japanese lizard.
Okay. And I still would.
I know you would. So try not to do that this time around, okay?
Are you saying that Godzilla wouldn't make a good politician?
Absolutely much better than Hillary. I agree with you. I'm a racist and anti-American. I totally agree with you.
We're being speciest here.
The economy. Well, she is I don't know. She doesn't really seem human, but it's just very. I believe that actually this is going to happen. That I just can't see him running. I can't see him getting through one debate. Anyway, I want to talk about the economy. For maybe like 20, 25 years, you might see a guy like Peter Schiff saying America's going to collapse, the dollar is going to collapse, everything's going to go away. And I think this is finally, you finally got it right. I mean, you're seeing the real estate sector collapse. Pretty soon there are going to be millions and millions of evictions. Many commercial real estate, they're not paying their bills. Restaurants and restaurant chains, they're all going under. Movie theaters, entertainment venues. It's just becoming so bad. And in addition, the dollar been following it. I only follow it compared to the yen because I get my income in dollars, and I've been taking a really hard hit. It's down to like
Yeah.
104.5 or something. And it's really affecting me. And I just can't really see anything, any type of recovery at all unless Trump finally takes leadership and makes that hydroxychloroquine available over the counter so people can start not being afraid to go out without wearing masks. They'll start traveling again. Actually, the refinery business, I used to be heavily invested in that. Thank God I got out. They had their worst quarter in over a decade, and the crack spreads are so low. Gasoline consumption is down over 25%. Car sales are down. It's just, unless this drug is made available over the counter and people stop being afraid and businesses can reopen without stopping here, I just can't see any economic recovery at all, and I just see a collapse of America.
It does seem like we're in a tailspin right now, and frankly, I think they've waited too long to try and pull it out. But again, Peter in Los Angeles hit it right on the head. The Democrats want the fear to continue in November so that people will stay at home and vote by mail, because that's how the Democrats are planning on stealing all the elections.
Well, yeah, they're trying it right now, but that's what Peter says. But I feel actually 180% different than him. I feel that what the Democrats are doing to try and instill this fear is going to backfire on them, because I feel a lot of people are against the mask. I feel a lot of people are against Antifa, for example, like the Antifa and Black Lives Matter. They were going down in the suburbs in Oregon and were chased out by just normal people living in the suburbs, along with the police. Even the police who get these restraining orders, they're fed up too. And a lot of people are just getting fed up with it and are starting to fight back. And I think it's going to negatively affect these democratic initiatives, and it's going to backfire on them, and it's going to be a landslide for Trump. However, I believe that landslide is going to lead to even further, harder violence.
It may. I mean, I was a little surprised by what happened back in 2016 when Trump won and just how violent it got.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it wasn't that violent, but compared to now, but it's getting a lot worse. I mean, you're seeing like they're using explosives with metal ball bearings and nails, and these Antifa people, they're trying to shoot other people, and they're shooting themselves because they're not adept with guns. But it's just becoming, I think it's becoming unbearable for a lot of people, and the stress with the whole corona just adds to more stress and more stress. And now with the economy going down, people can't work, and business failures, and people are worried about being able to pay their rent or pay their mortgage. I mean, it's going to be a point of chaos, I think, unless Trump starts taking leadership and does something very, very quickly. And then a lot of people for a long time, they've been waiting for this Durham report and this and that, and nothing's being done. Nothing's being done with the hydrochloroquine and this and that, and it's just getting, everybody is all stressed out, and it's going to explode if nothing is going to be done soon. And that's just my opinion from a guy abroad, looking from the outside.
Yeah, it does seem to be getting worse. And the part that concerns me is the longer all this violence in the streets goes on, the more and more people are going to say, well, this is now acceptable. And it's going to start spreading, into non-urban areas, I think.
Well, I hope it doesn't. I really hope it doesn't for you.
Well, I'm in agreement with you. I hope it doesn't either. But, we're in a situation of leading by example. And you're seeing like what's going on in Portland for 2 months now. And the civil authorities in Portland are saying, well, it's no big deal. And what kind of a lesson is that sending to the rest of America?
Well, I thought those were peaceful protests. They're all peaceful. Everybody thinks.
And I'll bet you think Saddam really did have nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Hey, that's all I have to say, Mike. And enjoy talking to you as always. And sorry I called you a racist and an anti-white, person.
Well, it's not like I'm dissing Godzilla.
Well, I do live in Tokyo, and any kind of praise for Godzilla, I really appreciate it. So
Okay.
Thank you very much, Michael.
All right, you got it there, and we're going to switch over to Dan in Washington State. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for calling or taking the call. I wanted to respond to Tom in Florida. I usually agree with him on immigration, but a lot of the callers and there's seems to be this need to defend the South and say it wasn't about slavery, but I encourage everyone to look into the Great Hanging of Gainesville, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked into that?
Not yet.
Yeah, check it out. 150 to 200 Texans, just small farmers, were against secession, and they were protesting being conscripted into the rebel army. And they were also protesting the fact that the rich slave owners didn't have to go to war. There was a law that said, I forgot how many slaves, over 40 or over 400 slaves, you didn't have to go fight in war. So it was just kind of the poor white guys, kind of like, Tom or me
Kinda
back
like
in the
me.
day. Yeah. So, but yeah, 150 to 200, and they were put on trial, and only 11% of the county had slaves, but 7 out of the 12 jurors were slave owners, and they basically voted to kill them all. And so they lynched 41 of them were hung, and the rest were lynched, basically. So, that's your South. It's people make I look at it like Tyson chicken. What if Trump actually did his job and went to Arkansas and said, look, we're deporting all illegal immigrants and you're going to hire Americans? And Tyson Chicken has so much money, and they said, no, that's our right. You're violating states' rights, and then raised an army of people like Tom to go fight for the Tyson Chicken army. It's the same concept. So you're just fighting for cheap labor. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
I've looked into it. The South had no right to secede. Congress voted on it. They voted not to let them. I think eventually states might get that right.
Yeah.
Like California eventually, but technically, if you go back, they did not have that right. And the South fired the
Well, it
first
depends
shot.
on who you ask. I mean, the country started as a confederation. That's why it's called the United States of America rather than the United State of America.
Yeah, but they all were all one against supposed Britain, right? So they were all country. I mean, the thing is, Congress was supreme, and they voted on it, and they voted not to allow them to secede. So it was what it was. I mean, they were all one country. It's just the South didn't want to give up its slaves, basically. The rich oligarchs of the South. And look at the Southern $2 bill, who they were. Judah Benjamin,
Yeah.
The Rothschilds, some of these same people, some of the same ones that want you to open the borders to massive cheap labor now. It's the same concept. So that's how I look at it. And I'm glad Lincoln won. And the only regret I have, he should have gone after the slave owners and these oligarchs and hung them, really, the people that forced the poor people to go fight in the stupid war. A lot of them didn't even want to fight in. They should have gone after them, but Lincoln got killed. And I think a lot of those people just moved to New York and became our ruling class today. It's the same a lot of the same people that were the slave owners are running Wall Street. So, anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. So,
Okay.
checking in the great pain of Gainesville, Texas. So, all right, thanks.
Thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch over to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I have a couple questions on the cashless society. I really am interested to hear your reply. First, can Mark from North Carolina, can he please let us know what his YouTube channel is? What is the name of his YouTube channel? Because I'd be quite interested. I agree with him a lot. I think on Stalin, yes, Stalin was a globalist, but he was also a monster. So
Yes.
not forget that. And Mike from Brazil, I'd like to hear from him on the situation on the ground there vis-a-vis
Yeah, it's been a while.
virus.
It's been a while since he's called
It's
in.
been a while. And Mike, on the cashless society, you mentioned yesterday this story about that Russian hacker. He drives a Lamborghini, and he is extorting. I can't recall the company, but
Evil
just
Corp.
imagine if we had a cashless right. Just imagine if we had a cashless society. I mean, couldn't that happen? Where a person like this fella in Russia or anywhere else in the world hacked into a company's system and basically disabled it, and they couldn't do any transactions.
Yeah,
And
it's already happened. It's already happened when ATM machines get hacked into.
Right. I don't understand this, and this is big high on the agenda of the Davos elite. I mean, they're having their big February summit in Davos, the Reset Summit. So you can bet this virus is going to be continuing until January. When they have this event. But also, Mike, last thing on the cashless society, one thing I don't understand is if it were to happen, how would that affect the drug trade? Because that's a cash business. And the CIA is up to its eyeballs in that business. How would that affect the drug trade if you have no cash and everything is digital?
Well, there would have to be some kind of like a darknet equivalent of a cashless bank. But I think you're absolutely right. The drug business being cash and carry is one reason why I don't think we'll ever actually get to the cashless society, because too many people are involved in that drug trade. And,
Right.
The other thing is, when you're over at the strip club, what do you tuck into the G-strings of the dancers if you don't have a few crumpled dollar bills?
That's right. And you could still get that jelly donut without anybody knowing.
That's true. I still want that jelly donut.
You got it. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. And I know a lot of people are saying cashless society, and now there's a coinage shortage and so forth and so on. But in the long run, because of the prevalence, if you will, of nefarious activity in our society, I don't think there'll be a cashless society. Now, obviously, the strip club, they can sell you little script. At the front door, you take your plastic card and they give you a little stack of their own internal printed up paper notes that you can tuck into the G-strings. But as far as the drug trade is concerned, it's hard to see that thing working on barter, where you get yourself a tenth of an ounce of cocaine or something and you trade a stolen VCR for it or something. VCR, I'm giving my age away here, a DVD player for that. Anyway, let's see. We're going to go to Sebastian in Sweden. Sebastian, hello. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hello, Mike. You're talking about the cashless society and the drug trade. There's already a drug trade on the internet. It's on the dark web, and they trade by using Bitcoin. What they do is they pay Bitcoin, and then they send you drugs home in the mail. I've only been on the dark web once. It was about a year or 2 years ago, and I was looking at weapons. But other than that, it was like, I know that there is.
I've heard
on
the
dark web.
They use the Bitcoin back and forth. But again, I have to be honest, I'm not really up to date on the dark web itself and the drug trade therein. But
I'm not.
If there's a way to make it work, they'll make it work.
Yeah, but I would have called in that it was someone that they got the Norwegian flag mixed up with the
Confederate flag, yeah. Stay on the line, Sebastian.
Yeah.
We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back after these few words. And welcome back to our show. We're talking with Sebastian in Sweden. We're talking about a story that we covered earlier in the show where somebody saw the flag of Norway and confused it for the flag of the Confederacy and made a big stink about it. And again, this is what Common Core has brought us, a population that is really not very educated, but ready to just scream and shout about whatever they assume is happening in front of them. I remember this big stink that happened a while back when somebody was in a council meeting and they used the word niggardly, which means stingy, tight with money. It's got nothing to do with race or slavery or anything. And everybody just went crazy. How could you use the N-word? No, that's a different N-word. No, but it sounds like it. Well, I don't care what it sounds like about, I'm not going to have my life judged by your ignorance. Anyway, Sebastian, so that was what happened with the flag there.
Yeah, I can see him mistaking the Union Jack because the Union Jack looks similar, with the the bars going across. But what I want to talk about is last year there were 3,000 incidents with Christian churches throughout Europe, and they usually attack the French, German, Great Britain, and Swedish churches. In France, there are 3 attacks daily. And in Germany, 2. And in Sweden, maybe once a week or something. Not that many. I don't know how many in England. I got this statistics from the European Union, if anyone wants to know. But anyway, I kind of like, Tom and Dustin and Mark and Peter and everyone. And I think they bring good points, And but what I miss Joe, the New Yorker that moved to Tennessee. I haven't heard him in weeks. Have you heard anything about him?
No, have not heard from him either.
Because he was supposed to take a flight or something somewhere and then go into he's in shipping or something or another, and he was going to fly somewhere and during the corona, and you don't hear from him about him, It's so weird. But anyway, that's all I had. And I am worried about the elections. I think I'm 80% positive that the Democrats are going to cheat their way in this year. I don't have any doubt about that.
I'm afraid you may be right. And if they succeed in doing this, it's because Donald Trump dropped the ball on election integrity. And so, if the Democrats succeed in feeding their way into control of both houses of Congress and the White House, I blame Trump for it. He had the authority and the power to do something about it, and he didn't.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mike. Take care of yourself.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Glenn in Philadelphia. And Glenn, we're almost at the end of the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I'm calling about the mail-in balloting, mail-in votes. I talked to another host this morning who said that in Missouri, they're going to require notarization of the mail-in ballots. And the very first thing I thought of is, first of all, mail-in ballots are going to, be a difficulty for the post office itself, which is used to handling larger volumes of throughput and rush times and stuff like that. So it's one thing to have the post office move the ballots. It's quite another to have notaries notarize the ballots. That's, when people say notary,
huge workload. Look, put on your mask and go to the voting booth. That's the only way we're going to have an honest election. Anyway, there's the music. I got to let you go. I got to let you go. And we had Mike from Brazil was on the line as well, so he's still around. He's going to call in tomorrow. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. We'll see you tomorrow. Aloha, America.